I'm joined now by Paul Bickley, a church leader and media commentator, and we're talking today, Paul, about political events across the ocean in America, because we've heard just overnight that New York now has a new mayor-elect, the 34-year-old Democrat Zohran Mamdani, and he's described himself as Trump's worst enemy. Firstly, does it surprise you that the headlines across the UK this morning were all about a mayoral race in New York City?
New York is a global city, and I think it symbolises something about our sense of where America is at. Of course, we all look across the Atlantic. We're fascinated by the evolution of America's politics, and this is a sign of how we have in the Federal Republic at least two different nations, two different senses of what America is. So for New York to elect a progressive Muslim background mayor say something about that city sense of itself, and it also says something to us about what's happening in America. So I'm not surprised, really. New York is a major global city, and in some ways a lot like London. So there's an interesting parallel there with our own mayor as well. So I'm not surprised that our press, our media, our eyes are drawn to this. It is a genuinely interesting turn of events.
And in America itself, looking on from outside, it appears to be the case that both sides, on the one hand, Trump, his MAGA support base, the Republicans, on the other hand, Democrats and those opposed to the MAGA ideology, have both been seeing this as almost a test for whether or not their version of America is going to be saved. Is it problematic for Christians when we start looking at politics and politicians as the saviours of society?
I think it is, and I always think the story is slightly more complicated than that anyway. And of course, Mamdani he's also an outsider, as it were, within the Democratic establishment. So part of the fascination here is to see what kind of Democrat is going to get elected in the future and where. I mean, New York is what it is. It's a very diverse, fairly wealthy, although not exclusively wealthy, city. So I would also want to be saying to people, don't draw too many lessons from his election there. I'm not sure that could be repeated in the same way everywhere across America. But yes, you're absolutely right. We do have this tendency to fixate on individuals and what they can do, how they can, you saw it perhaps at its apogee in Barack Obama's presidency. Whatever we think, whatever our politics are, there was a real kind of elevation of him as a symbol of America's transformation, of America's future, a more hopeful politics, and a more constructive politics. And it's not to say that he wasn't all of those things, but in the end, of course, as the scriptures say, all flesh is grass. There's a sense in which nobody can achieve those kind of goals. So there's a real risk in investing to that extent in individual political leaders. Politics is complicated. Running even what we think of relatively simple services is complicated. And of course, there's the old phrase, which I think was from one of the Cuomo family, politicians campaign in poetry and govern in prose. So what you can achieve in sort of exciting people and raising people's expectation during a campaign, there is inevitably a gap then between what you were able to do in government when you have won that election and the inevitable shock that follows for supporters who have high expectations when they discover that the fundamentals, the challenges, the headwinds that all politicians of whatever background face, they're still the same, and it's difficult. So yes, there's a real risk in doing that, both for practical and theological reasons.
When we look then at expectations and what's actually done on the ground, does this focus on the individual or even focus on the party? Does it hide from view the fact that actually it's grassroots organisations, it's community groups, it's churches, it's all sorts of ordinary people who make a lot of this stuff work at the local level? And does the hiding of that by this elevation of individuals maybe prevent us getting involved in that grassroots stuff?
Well, certainly if we wait and expect for a single political movement, be that party or an individual, to shift our sense of the world, our engagement with the world, even from a quote unquote secular point of view, again, that's a mistake. And you're rightly pointing to where is the difference made in our lives, in our daily experience. It's made at street level, at ground level, in our relationships with our neighbours, in our membership of institutions, and in our experience of public services, and that is where everybody's got to make a difference. And a single individual doesn't have the complete knowledge, complete capacity to reach down into those spaces and create any kind of change. And it is true also on the level of we give up our own agency. And we make the move of thinking there's nothing much I can do, and again wait in a passive, and we wait for somebody to as it were change the circumstances, change the game. The truth is, we all have our part to play, and I think that's particularly so. So Christians have a particular way of saying that, a particular powerful way of saying that, with metaphors which were actually political even at the time, about the body and what is the nature of the church. It's like a body that can't function unless all parts are kind of healthy and well. So we need to remember those things. We would say that about healthy churches, wouldn't we? We would say that not everything belongs to the guy behind the microphone or the woman behind the microphone. That person is going to need huge amounts of team support and other people with their gifts exercising and being raised up in the things that they can do. And good leaders would say that as well. So as we say that about the church, we should certainly see that and bring that perspective to the rest of society as well. And the kind of a better future, a better society for a city like London, city like New York, or even just, where a place like I grew up, a small town in the north of England, that rests with all of us. It's not just a single individual or a single institution.
Well, just finally, do you think if we get that vision and if we do get involved in whatever ways we can at the local level, working with people from all different backgrounds and areas to try and achieve the greater good for our streets, can that also be a bit of an antidote to this seemingly growing polarisation between extremes in politics just now?
Yeah, I think so. It's on a basic level. It's who do we know? Do we have a sense of empathy? Understanding, a sense of listening to. We don't have to share everything. That's the other thing to say as well. I think sometimes people have a kind of motherhood and apple pie framing for what cohesion has to be. It doesn't have to be everybody agreeing on everything. What it has to be are common institutions in which we're equally invested, and that we recognise that because the local library is flourishing, I'm going to flourish. Or because the local primary school is flourishing, my family are going to flourish. And that can be a powerful, you use the word antidote, I think it can be a powerful antidote when there are shared common spaces in which people from different backgrounds are invested and they are empowered, and those need to be open institutions where people are invited to come and join and be members and to make a difference. But when you've spent hours and hours in a governor's meeting of a local primary school sat next to someone of a different faith background or a different ethnicity, of course that will healthily corrode some of the misunderstanding and some of the sense of division, because there's that investment in common institutions. So yes, I think that's really important. We have lost the habit in some respects in this country of being joiners of things. I think that would be one of the most healthy things that we could do for our society, is just begin to get back involved just in simple local activities, agencies, kind of moves for change. It needn't be political. It's just simply about how are we investing in our own spaces and our own communities.
Paul Bickley, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave.